Welcome to the Codcast. I'm Bruce Moe of CommonWealth Magazine, and with me today is Brian Lang, the president of Unite Here Local 26, the union that represented dining hall workers in the recent strike at Harvard. He is also a member of the MBTA's Fiscal Management and Control Board, which is charged with getting the T back on track. Welcome, Brian. How you doing?
Great. Good to be here.
Good. It seems like you have an interesting perspective on labor management relations right now. You head a union that achieved all of its contract goals, basically, by going on strike for 3 weeks at Harvard. And you serve on a board that seems very interested in privatizing operations at the T, which tends to mean fewer union jobs. Another interesting parallel I noticed, 7 members of the Carmen's union leadership were arrested on October 6 for blocking trucks coming in and out of the T's money counting facility. You were arrested along with 10 other people on October 14th for blocking traffic to protest Harvard's failure to give its dining hall workers a fair contract. Tell me about the situation you find yourself in, heading a union and then serving on a board that might be in conflict with the T's unions. How do you handle that?
Well, first and foremost, when I'm acting as the president of Local 26, it's very clear that my job is as a representative of the 10,000 members in our union. When I'm sitting as a control board member, my job is a member of the Fiscal Management Control Board. 2 distinct, different jobs. And so I keep reminding myself when I'm sitting on the control board that it's not my job to represent, as a union president would, the workers of the T. They have their elected representatives, and they have their approach and strategy as to how they're going to do that. I do bring a perspective that, particularly with the challenges before us at the T, there is a lot of room for common ground here. The interests of the workers at the T really overlap with the interests of the citizens of the Commonwealth on having a vibrant and world-class T.
So, tell me, when you were appointed to the Fiscal Management Control Board, I assumed it was partly because of your background and your experience, or am I wrong about that?
Well, I asked the governor directly why he was appointing me, and he said 2 things. He said that the contact that he's had with our union, the members of our union, has always been very respectful, and that I am the head of a union that represents a lot of folks who are dependent on the T, and so he thought it would be useful from both vantage points to appoint me. And I was honored and flattered by the governor's compliment there.
So the strike at Harvard, big step to go on strike for close to 3 weeks, I think. But that seems to have been that, and building support from students, faculty, and the public at large seems to be a key factor in winning all your goals. How do you see it? What happened there?
Well, our goals were very simple and modest. We started by proposing to the richest university in the world a program to deal with income inequality on the campus. Our members, the dining service workers, are the lowest paid folks on the campus. And so we proposed $35,000 minimum annual income, and to not increase healthcare costs, particularly the co-payments that Harvard increased for thousands of other people on the campus. And our members were very determined, had a tremendous amount of courage. Our members work paycheck to paycheck. Many of them had not worked all summer and couldn't collect unemployment. They came back, worked a month, And because of the Harvard administration's incalcitrance at that point, after 5 months of negotiations, the members decided to go on strike, and they held firm for 3 weeks, and would have held out longer if Harvard hadn't, the administration hadn't developed the will to do the right thing.
And why do you think Harvard resisted for 3 weeks, I guess you'd say?
You know, I can only speculate, and I'd rather not speculate. What I can say is that Harvard should be proud at this point that they have participated in setting a new standard for dining hall workers in the Boston area, one which we're going to take out to the other universities and colleges where we represent dining hall workers, and the next one will be Northeastern. We think that Harvard is actually has participated in setting a new standard, which Harvard has a history of doing. Back in the early 2000s, they set a standard around a living wage for service sector workers that other institutions have emulated. So my hat's off to Harvard for making the right decision at this point.
I can see why your hat's off to them, but it seems like it was a struggle. It wasn't, they didn't just sort of say, yeah, that makes sense, let's do it. Without even talking about Harvard, what is sort of the context of labor negotiations in this area and across the country right now? Is it difficult to be a person in your position?
There's, without a doubt, there's challenges, but I actually, my experience revolves around hospitality workers, meaning folks who work in food service, institutional food service, and in hotels. And my experience is that working class people today are hungry for a program to stand up and improve the conditions for themselves and their families and their communities. And I think the Harvard, what the dining hall workers at Harvard did, is a good example of that. This is an example of ordinary people who don't necessarily see themselves, for the most part, as activists in any way, who came together, really had each other's back, and stood firm against a quite powerful institution, and did very extraordinary things along the way. You mentioned the civil disobedience. There were 9 women who had never done anything like that before, and who were quite frankly terrified at the prospect of doing it. But after some conversations amongst themselves and with me and others, decided that it was worth doing that. And they went into that action terrified. They came out with a much stronger sense of themselves and how powerful they are as women, and what the possibilities are as working class people standing up together. The experience of going on strike like that is an experience that is extremely challenging on the one hand. On the other hand, I wish more people got to experience it, because the connection that people develop with each other, the sense of pride, and the sense of purpose is not something that a lot of people in our society today get to experience. So
take off your union leader hat and put on your T hat for a minute. It seems like you're going to be in a different position on the Fiscal Management and Control Board, dealing with some of the T unions. Now, you said that there's a lot of room there to work things out and make progress together. But there's been some combative talk so far, both on both sides in a way. T officials are talking about privatization as a way to reduce costs. Union workers are sort of drawing a line in the sand, saying, no, this is going too far. How do you personally approach that issue?
Well, I look at it really, or I try to look at it from the perspective of what is best for the transportation system overall. Not in the short term, but in the short, medium, and long term. And at this point, I've come to the conclusion that the operations, the core operations, and the maintenance are best served in-house. And I'll tell you why. When I look at the privatization of, and I'm talking about the core operations. I'm not talking about payroll services or that type of thing. You look at something like the commuter rail. The Fiscal Management Control Board inherited a contract with Keolis. We didn't negotiate it. As it turns out, the contract was not adequate for Keolis to actually continue to operate. They were on the verge of walking away from it. We were beholden to them. So in that context, we negotiated the best deal that we could, but the result was another $66 million for them. But we were beholden to them. I think we have other contracts out there where we're in a similar position. I don't want to see us get into that position with the operations of the bus lines, of the heavy rail, of the light rail, or the maintenance. If we lose our expertise completely, and I think we've, over the decades, have lost a fair amount, we're going to be beholden to the private sector. And if that happens, I think it'll be a disaster for the T.
You mentioned that they were, the T was beholden to Keolis, that they were maybe going to walk away. They were actually saying that?
Not in those words, but it was a distinct possibility.
Mm-hmm.
From their point of view, the contract wasn't working for them. They were a French company. They were getting a tremendous amount of pressure from their headquarters, and we were not in a position to say take it or leave it, because if they left, we would have been without a commuter rail system operating.
Right.
I think, to me, there was a real lesson in that. And under those circumstances, we negotiated a very good deal. But that's a real severe handicap to be in.
Right.
So, let's look at our mandate from the legislature. Well, we're supposed to shrink the operating budget to being a balanced budget. And that's an enormous pressure on us. And I think that pressure, if we get tunnel vision just around that pressure and start just looking at that and not looking at the medium and the long term, we could fall into the trap of privatization is a way to reduce the costs. And then, great, we fulfilled the mandate of the legislature, but where does that put us going forward in the future? And that's a major concern that I have. We have a mandate, but what's going to happen if we don't exactly come down to an exact balanced budget? I'm willing to take that risk if it means that we have to sacrifice something there in order to maintain a rational approach to the medium and long term.
So you mentioned core services that you'd like to, maintain in-house at the T, and I guess it all depends on your definition of core services. I think you were away with fighting the fight with your own union at the time or approximately when the T voted to privatize the money counting operation, and it was represented then that you would have voted no if you had been there by, I think, the chairman. Now that was portrayed as a non-core function. Where do you draw the line on that? Or is it case by case?
It really is case by case. And The problem I had with the privatization of the money room was I just felt that it was done hastily. I think that there were compelling arguments to do it. On the one hand, on the other hand, I don't think it had to happen as quickly as it did, and that we might have been able to engage the union in a better way than happened.
And are you the T hasn't made any decisions about other privatization stuff yet, but there's talk of even going as far as bus operations. That's just sort of that's a possibility. They haven't really raised it yet, but it seems like there is a mandate or a push by the management to do more of this. Do you think it's ever possible that there would be a strike at the T? Philadelphia has been hit with a strike by transit workers. Do you think that would ever happen here?
I don't really know, but just to address Philadelphia, they have a history of striking on a regular basis. I know that, and they're unique in that regard. I don't have any recall of a strike in Boston in the T. There may have been.
Yeah, I don't have any recall either.
So, but then again, nobody had any recall of a strike at Harvard, and we had a strike there. But anyway, it hasn't been a concern that's been raised, and it doesn't look like we're anywhere near a strike.
There was a rally by the Carmen's Union out in front of the State House a week or so ago where the mayor of Boston spoke. And he represented that he was trying to work some back channels with the governor, trying to find some common ground, some ways around this. I was just curious, given your background, are you taking on any similar role, trying to work between the unions and management there? Or are you sort of going to stick to your position as a member of the board and hear things there?
Well, first, just to comment on the mayor and the governor speaking, I actually think they're both very, very smart, and I think they both care deeply about fixing the problem of the T. So that, to me, is a very encouraging sign, the mayor and the governor talking about it. And anything I can do would pale compared to those two. So I hope what the mayor suggested in his remarks is going on and is happening in an ongoing way.
And just in general, how do you feel you've been on this Fiscal Management and Control Board. I've never seen anything quite like it in state government. You folks meet practically every week, sometimes even more often. And it's just issue after issue after issue. And it's not just little things like a little contract here or there. It's everything, and it's really complicated stuff. And yet, you've drawn, and this is my personal opinion, you've drawn attention to what is the problem at the T, or what are the problems at the T. And I feel like you've given a perception that we're trying to address them, even though it appears to be a very difficult challenge. How do you think it's gone so far? Are you glad you got in?
I am. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I can't think of another context that I'd have the opportunity to work with a group like the other members of the control board, and it's really opened my mind to the possibilities of collaboration in general. When I look at on paper, I look at someone like Steve Povtek. Before I met him, I thought to myself, "Wow, this is going to be interesting." And it just goes to show that, at least for me, I carry stereotypes of someone who was kind of characterized as conservative and on the other end of the political spectrum. And then I get in a room with them and we get talking, and we have so much more in common. And particularly, I think each and every control board member is very dedicated and cares deeply about the mission that we're on. And the diversity of experience and opinion is actually very healthy. And at the end of the day, the person I think who deserves the credit the most for such a good board, and I think that we are a good board, is the governor. He put together a board not based on political favors or anything like that, but based on the variety of perspectives that he thought would be useful. And as it turns out, I think he was right.
And you're going to be working for at least how much longer? Do you?
I guess till July of 2018.
So you still have quite a ways to go.
Yes.
But is the end in sight in turning around the T? Do you feel like you see the light at the end of the tunnel, or are you still sort of?
Maybe it's because I'm probably the least experienced person on the board when it comes to transportation and finance. I think you take those two disciplines. And so maybe other board members have a better perspective on where the light at the end of the tunnel is. I feel like such a novice that I think we're making some progress in terms of outlining the issues that we have to tackle, and that's a fantastic step. I actually don't think that the Fiscal Management Control Board is gonna, at the conclusion of our terms, that things are gonna be, there's gonna be a huge light at the end of the tunnel. What we hope and what I hope is that we have things set on the right track, and along with a new governance structure going forward, that will be able to bring us to the light at the end of the tunnel.
Brian Lang, thank you for joining us today. And that's the end of the podcast. I want to thank you for all listening in, and please sign up on SoundCloud and iTunes to listen to future episodes. Thanks. Have a great day.